My mother kicked me out at 16 to give everything to my stepbrothers. 17 years later, she came back demanding $75,000. But I exposed her to the entire family, and she ended up with a restraining order. I'm 33 years old, work in upper management at a pretty big company, and honestly, I never thought I'd be telling this story. But what happened a few months ago still has me processing a lot of things. Basically, my mother, who kicked me out of the house when I was 16, showed up out of nowhere, demanding money after 17 years of not talking to me. And well, things got really ugly, like worse than I ever imagined. I guess I should start at the beginning. So, all of this makes sense, because the thing is, my childhood was pretty normal until my mom met Roger. I was like 11 years old when Marilyn, my mother, started dating him. My biological father, Peter, was never in my life. I mean, he left before I was born and I never met him. So for years, it was just mom and me in a small apartment. We weren't rich or anything, but we were okay, you know. We had what we needed and she worked hard so we wouldn't lack anything. But when Roger showed up, everything changed super fast. He was one of those cold, distant types who looks at you like you're a piece of furniture in the way. From the beginning, I felt like he didn't like me. But mom was like totally in love. Like she didn't see anything else. And I was only 11 then. What could I do? I remember they got married like a year after they met. It was a small wedding, and I was standing there in a borrowed suit thinking maybe things would get better once we were all officially together. Spoiler alert, they didn't get better. But when I was 12, mom got pregnant with twins. Dylan and his brother were born when I was 13, and it was literally like I stopped existing overnight. Everything became about the babies, which, okay, I understand babies need attention, but it was more than that. It was like Roger finally had the perfect excuse for me to disappear from the map, and mom just allowed it. I remember I started doing more things on my own, staying after school at the library, looking for any excuse not to be at the house, because when I was there, I felt completely invisible, or worse, like a burden. Things gradually got worse over the next few years. Roger was never physically abusive or anything, but there were comments, little things that accumulate. Like I ate too much, my stuff took up too much space, my school activities cost them money they needed for the twins, and mom said nothing, literally nothing, to defend me. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. All the signs were there. But when you're 15 or 16, and it's your mother, you want to believe things will get better, that she'll wake up one day and remember you're her child too. But it didn't happen. What happened was, one afternoon, like 2 weeks after I turned 16, I came home from school, and mom and Roger were sitting in the living room waiting for me. The twins were in the bedroom playing, and I immediately knew something bad was going to happen because mom had that face. That face you make when you're about to do something horrible, but you've already convinced yourself it's the right thing. I sat down and Roger went straight to the point. He said things were very difficult financially, that with the twins growing up, they needed more space and more money, and that basically I was already 16 and could manage on my own. Mom just nodded while he talked, and when I tried to look her in the eyes so she'd tell me it was a joke or something, she just looked at the floor. They told me I had 2 weeks to find somewhere to stay. 2 weeks. And the reason they gave me, the one that still burns inside when I think about it, was that the twins deserved more than what I had gotten, that they deserved the best opportunity possible, and that I was holding them back. Roger literally said that I was holding back my brothers, as if my existence was an obstacle to the success of 2 3-year-old kids. And mom, my own mother, just added that it was best for everyone, that I would understand when I was older. I couldn't even breathe properly. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach, and all I could do was go to my room and close the door. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. I tried to talk to mom several times, like begging her to reconsider, but she just repeated the same thing, that it was temporary, that when things got better I could come back. But we both knew it was a lie. I called my grandparents, Albert and Evelyn, my mom's parents, and told them what was happening. They got furious, literally told me to pack my things and move in with them immediately. They lived like an hour away, which meant changing schools in my last year and a half, but I had no other choice. The day I left, mom didn't even come out of her room. Roger helped me put my stuff in Albert's car, And I remember he said something like this would teach me to be independent, as if kicking me out was some kind of favor he was doing me. Albert almost hit him. I had to stop him, and we left. On the way to my grandparents' house, I couldn't cry. I was like in shock, trying to process that my own mother had chosen her new husband and her other children over me, and that I basically stopped mattering to her. Living with Albert and Evelyn was different. They gave me the guest room, helped me transfer to a new school, and never made me feel like a burden. But I knew they didn't have much money. Albert was retired, and Evelyn only worked part-time, so I got a job at a coffee shop to help with expenses and have my own money. I worked like 25 hours a week after school and on weekends, and somehow managed to keep my grades high enough to graduate. It was exhausting. I'm not going to lie. There were nights where I fell asleep on my books, but the alternative was to depend completely on my grandparents, or worse, having to go back to Mom and Roger, and that wasn't an option. During that time, Mom called occasionally, like once every 2 or 3 months, and the conversations were super awkward. She asked how I was. I said, fine, and that was it. She never apologized, never admitted what they did was wrong, and I didn't have the energy to confront her either. I remember once she told me the twins asked about me, and I just thought, really? That's what you're going to tell me? But I didn't say anything, just nodded even though she couldn't see me on the phone. When it came time to apply for college, things got even more complicated. I had good grades and got accepted to a couple of state universities, but I needed someone to co-sign student loans. I asked Mom, thinking maybe, just maybe, she would do this for me. But when I called her and explained it, she basically said she couldn't because that would affect their ability to take out loans for the twins in the future. Not that she didn't want to, but that she couldn't, as if the twins, who were 5 years old at that time, needed college loans immediately. I hung up without saying goodbye. Albert and Evelyn tried to help, but didn't qualify to co-sign because of their financial situation. I was about to give up and forget about college when Andrea, my aunt, Mom's younger sister, called me. She had heard what was happening. I don't know if from Albert and Evelyn or because Mom told her, but she told me she would co-sign the loans. Andrea had always been like the black sheep of the family, the one who left home at 18 and basically made her own life. But when I needed help, she was there without hesitation. I remember I cried when she said yes, like it was the first time in months that I felt someone besides my grandparents really cared about me. College was tough. I'm not going to romanticize it. I worked multiple jobs, sometimes up to 3 at the same time, while carrying 15 credits per semester. Waiter, tutor, library assistant, whatever. There were weeks where I slept like 4 hours a night and basically lived on coffee and cheap food. Andrea helped me when she could, sent me money for books or when I had some emergency, and Albert and Evelyn also contributed what they could. But most of the time I was alone, trying to keep my head above water and thinking that someday all this would be worth it. During those years, I barely spoke to Mom. She didn't come to my high school graduation, didn't help me move to college, nothing. Every now and then she sent me text messages asking how I was, and I responded with monosyllables. Andrea kept me updated on what was happening with her and Roger, like that the twins were in expensive sports teams and music classes and all that kind of stuff, the things I apparently prevented them from having when I lived with them. And I'm not going to lie, it hurt to know they had everything while I was working 3 jobs and eating ramen every day, but it also motivated me, like to prove to them they hadn't destroyed me. I graduated at 22 with a degree in business administration and literally 0 credit card debt because I was so afraid of getting into more debt. I got an entry-level job at a medium-sized company and started paying my student loans aggressively. I lived with 2 roommates in a horrible apartment for the first few years, saved every penny I could, and worked like crazy. I had no social life, didn't go out, didn't spend on anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. People at work thought I was boring or antisocial, but the truth is, I was obsessed with getting ahead, with proving I could do it alone. And it worked. By the time I was 27, I had already paid like 60% of my student loans and had been promoted twice. By 30, I was in middle management and finally living alone in a decent apartment. Andrea came to visit me from time to time and always told me how proud she was, and that meant more to me than she probably knew. Albert and Evelyn too. They always believed in me, even when I doubted myself. Like a year ago, they promoted me to upper management. It was a big jump, like they almost doubled my salary, and I finally felt like I had reached a stable place. I paid off the last of my student loans, bought myself a new car, my first new car ever, and moved into a small house in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't anything luxurious or anything, but it was mine, you know, something I had achieved completely on my own. Well, with Andrea's and my grandparents' help, but without Mom, without Roger, without anyone who had told me I wasn't enough. Andrea mentioned my promotion at some family gathering where Mom was. They didn't invite me to that gathering, by the way. They never invited me. But Andrea did go because, unlike me, she had maintained contact with everyone. So Mom found out I was in upper management, probably imagined how much I was making. And suddenly, after years of barely talking to me, she started sending me messages asking how I was, saying it had been a long time, that we should reconnect. I ignored her most of the time, responded with vague things, because honestly I had no interest in having a relationship with her, after everything that had happened. But then, like 6 months ago, there was a knock on my door on a Saturday morning. I opened, and there were Mom and Roger, standing at my entrance like nothing. They hadn't told me they were coming, hadn't asked if they could visit me, just showed up. Mom was smiling, like that fake smile you make when you need something. And Roger was standing there with his usual face, serious and kind of annoyed. I froze for a second because I literally hadn't seen them in person in years, and the first thing I thought was, how did they know where I live? I let them in because I didn't know what else to do. Like I was in shock. We sat in the living room, that horrible, awkward silence, and finally Mom started talking. She said the twins were about to enter college, that Dylan wanted to study engineering and his brother, something related to business, and that universities were very expensive. Up to there, everything was fine. I mean, okay, you're giving me information about my brothers I barely know, but then came the real reason for the visit. Roger leaned forward and said, "We need you to help us with tuition," as if it was the most natural thing in the world to ask me for tens of thousands of dollars. I stared at them, unable to believe what I was hearing. I asked Mom, "Are you serious?" And she said yes, that I was in a good position now, that they had exhausted their savings on the twins during all these years, that it was my turn to help the family. I felt my blood boiling, like I could literally feel my face getting hot. I reminded them they kicked me out when I was 16, that they said I was holding back the twins, that they never helped me with my college, nothing. And Mom had the nerve to say that was different, that at that time they were in a difficult situation, but that I had made it well, hadn't I? As if the fact that I survived and got ahead justified what they did to me. Roger started getting aggressive, saying I was selfish, that the twins were my family and I had an obligation to them. I told them to leave, that I wasn't going to give them a cent, that they made their decision 17 years ago and now they would have to live with the consequences. Mom started crying, like dramatic tears, saying how could I be so cruel, that she was my mother, and that's where I exploded. I yelled at her, literally yelled, that she stopped being my mother the day she chose to kick me out to give more to the twins, that Albert and Evelyn and Andrea were more family to me than she had ever been. I told them to get out of my house and never come back. I thought that would be the end, but oh no, Mom doesn't give up easily. Like a week later, she showed up at my work. She arrived at reception and started making a scene, yelling that she needed to talk to me, that it was urgent, that she was my mother. My coworkers were there, my boss was there, and I was mortified. I went down and tried to calm her down, to take her outside, but she kept yelling that I was an ungrateful son, that after everything she had done for me, I was denying her help. I had to call security to escort her out of the building, and it was humiliating, like one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. After that, I thought, okay, she got the message. She's not going to bother me anymore. But like 2 days later, I got home from work, and there she was again, waiting for me at the entrance of my house. This time she came alone, without Roger, and she was furious. She started yelling at me as soon as she saw me, saying I was the worst person in the world. How dare I humiliate her at my work, that I had made her look bad with the whole family. I tried to go into my house and ignore her, but she grabbed my arm, like literally pulled me, and I pulled away and told her to leave me alone. The neighbors were watching. Some came out to see what was happening, and Mom was there yelling like crazy. She pushed me. Not super hard, but she pushed me. And I told her if she didn't leave, I was going to call the police. She said, "Go ahead, call them, let's see if they believe you," and kept yelling. So I took out my phone and called 911. And at that moment, she changed. Started crying again, saying please don't call the police, that she just needed me to listen to her. But I had already called. The officers arrived like in 10 minutes, and when they got there, Mom was sitting on my entrance floor crying, like making a complete show. I explained the situation to them, that she had shown up at my house without my permission, that she had pushed me, that I had asked her to leave, and she hadn't. The neighbors confirmed they had seen her yelling at me and that I had tried to go into my house. The officers told her she had to leave or they would arrest her for trespassing. She kept crying, saying I was her son, that they didn't understand, but she finally left. One of the officers recommended I file a formal complaint and request a restraining order, and that's exactly what I did. The next day I went to the police station, made the complete report of everything that had happened, including the incident at my work, and requested the restraining order. They approved it like a week later. Albert and Evelyn found out about all this because Andrea told them. They were furious with Mom, like angrier than I had ever seen them. Albert called her and told her what she was doing was completely out of line, that I had been through enough because of her, and that if she didn't stop harassing me, they were going to cut contact with her. And they did it. Like really cut contact. Evelyn told me they had tried to keep the peace during all these years, not to take sides, but that what Mom was doing now was unforgivable. Andrea also supported me completely. She never had a super close relationship with Mom anyway, but after this, she basically told her she didn't want to know anything about her until she apologized to me properly, which we know will never happen. Like a month ago, I bought Andrea a gift, like something meaningful. An expensive bracelet she had been looking at for a while, as a way to thank her for everything she did for me. When I gave it to her, she started crying and told me I didn't owe her anything, that she had done what any decent person would do. But for me, it meant everything. Because without her, I literally don't know where I'd be. Last week, something unexpected happened. I received a message on Facebook from Dylan, one of the twins. He had never talked to me. Like never in my life had we had a real conversation. His message was long, basically saying he had heard my version of the story from Albert and Evelyn, that he didn't know they had kicked me out when I was 16. That Mom had always told them I had left on my own, because I didn't get along with Roger. He said he was confused, that he didn't know what to believe, but that he wanted to hear my side directly from me. He also said his brother, it wasn't ready to talk to me yet, but that he did want to try to have some kind of relationship with me if I was open to it. I'm not going to lie, I don't know what to do with that. On one hand, Dylan is my brother, shares my blood even though I don't know him. On the other hand, he's the result of the relationship that destroyed my life. He's one of the kids I was kicked out for. But I also understand he had nothing to do with the decisions Mom and Roger made 17 years ago. He was just a baby. I responded 2 days ago, told him I was willing to talk but that I had to go slow, that I couldn't just act like we were close brothers overnight. He responded that he understood completely, that he wasn't in a hurry, that he just wanted to get to know me. So I guess that's where I am now. I'm 33 years old, have a solid career, own a house, have people who really love me, and a restraining order against my own mother. The twins are 20, entering college without my financial help, and Mom and Roger are going to have to figure out how to pay for it on their own, just like I had to. Part of me feels bad for the twins because they didn't ask for parents like that, but another part of me thinks maybe this will teach them something about consequences and responsibility. I don't know. Honestly, it's still complicated to think about. What I do know is, I don't regret saying no to Mom. For years, I wondered if I was a bad person for being resentful, if I should forgive and forget because she's my mother. But after everything that happened, after she literally showed up at my work and at my house to harass me for money, I know I made the right decision. I don't owe her anything, and I certainly don't owe sacrificing my peace of mind and financial stability for the children she prioritized over me. Andrea asked me yesterday if I could ever forgive Mom. I told her the truth, That I don't know. Maybe someday when I'm an old man and she's on her deathbed or something. But right now I don't have the emotional space for that. I'm focused on my life, on the people who really care about me, and on maybe, just maybe, getting to know Dylan and seeing if we can build something from scratch. That's going to have to be enough for now.